All right, Disney is laughing all the way to the bank with its $95.5 million, which is the box office numbers from this weekend and its debut of The Little Mermaid. I'm just reading some of the responses as to why The Little Mermaid could not be Black. Claims such as mermaids live under the sea and therefore would not have dark skin. The Little Mermaid is a Danish story, therefore Ariel should be white. Mermaids are a European mythological figure and therefore Ariel should be white. Making Ariel Black is ruining childhoods and changing the character. The list goes on and on and on. Mermaids live under the sea and skin can't be dark. I mean, no, somebody really said that. Okay, I don't even know where we start. First of all, congratulations to the cast. I love, Melissa McCarthy. I love Halle Bailey. Fantastic job. The public responded very positively to this casting. Why, Professor Howard, is it driving folks to insanity and coming up with stupid arguments like mermaids live underwater so their skin can't be dark? Little kids movie is causing grown people to lose their minds.
Yeah, here we go again. This is yet the recent and most another apparent manifestation of white supremacy. And not just white supremacy, but let's go deeper on this, Areva. This is about anti-Blackness, anti-Black womanness, right? That we just can't fathom the thought of seeing Black women, Black girls lifted up, affirmed, seen in through the lens of beauty and imagination. And let's be clear, as you mentioned at the outset, if you look at the work of Jalandra Davis, she's talked about the fact that Black mermaids, there is a long history in African cosmology and in mythology that says that for those ancestors who jumped off of those ships and boats during the Atlantic slave trade, that there's belief that they became Black mermaids. This is nothing new in the ways in which Black folks have seen Black mythology. But the idea that Black women and Black girls can be lifted up and affirmed in this way is how this is manifesting. I'll say one more thing on this. I have a 7-month-old granddaughter, and to me, there's nothing more powerful than for her to see a Black mermaid, someone who looks like her, has her skin tone, has her beauty. The ways in which Black girls and Black women need to be affirmed is just so important. And so kudos to Disney for doing the right thing and standing up to all the racism. But I also hope and wish that Disney would invest some of the money they made off Black folks into programs for Black girls and Black women across this country.
Well, I'm sitting here scratching my head thinking, this is why when we take Black history and the work of Dr. Davis that you just described, nobody will ever know it unless you're in a university setting, and not even all universities, because that is the kind of history that is being erased from our curriculum. So we are left with the ignorance, and it's not just white folks, Black folks themselves, ourselves, not themselves, I'm one of them, ourselves won't learn that either. That's what's so scary, Professor Walker. So somebody literally, because white supremacy narrative, we're inculcated with it as well. It becomes a part of our culture, Black folks, and people think when you say white supremacist, you have to be white. No, white supremacy narratives are taught to us as Black people. We internalize them and we live them out in many ways as well. So you'll even hear Black people say, well, mermaids can't be Black. Oh, it's exhausting. Professor Walker,
yeah. It's crazy. It would be even crazy if you reminded people that life began in Africa, right? So, I mean, what are we really talking about here? If mermaids were real, guess where they would come from? They would have came from the continent. So, I mean, but, we don't have that kind of rational thinking. We certainly don't have the kind of we aren't teaching. Kids aren't being taught. No one's being taught that Homo sapiens came out of Africa in the first place. So that'd be a whole nother controversial issue. But you're right, this idea about mermaids not being able to be Black, particularly considering when the crab has a Caribbean accent, right? That's a telltale sign right there, right? You see, he's from one of the Caribbean islands. So where is Ariel from? More than likely, she's from she has ancestors from the Caribbean islands. So where a lot of Black folks are. So this idea, once again, that Professor Howard talked about, if it's not centered in whiteness, and that's why we see these attacks against CRT and DEI, if it's not centered in the experience of individuals who have been the focal point of this country for generations, this is what we get. We get these outrageous conversations about fictitious characters that swim in the water all the time can't be Black.
And I guess I'm wondering, Professor, if you just believe that this is pure fiction, that this is a fairy tale, it's a made-up story, how do we even get to what the race of the person should be in any instance? Because if you make up the story, you get to make the person whatever color you want to be. The mermaid could be a man. The mermaid doesn't even have to be a woman, right? Could the mermaid be a little boy?
White supremacy takes no days off, Areva. We know this, right? So it's not, you can't even imagine, you cannot even begin to do what folks in Afrofuturism talk about to begin to think critically about a different reality. Look, and let's be frank about this. We know for years, white supremacy and these different film production companies, they changed the African narrative. Look at Cleopatra. They changed her from Black to white. Look at Moses. They changed him from Black to white, right? So the idea that whiteness has to always be centered, as Professor Walker just mentioned, and that anything that even sort of ventures off that is problematic, especially if it's Black, that is the antithesis of what whiteness permeates all the time. And so therefore, that's why you see the massive backlash. But kudos to folks who went out and supported this and lifted this up, because again, representation matters for Black girls.
Yeah, it matters. And money, obviously. These box office hauls over the weekend, these big weekends, Memorial Day weekend, they matter. So hopefully, Professor Walker, Disney looks at these numbers and say, look, we can weather these little Twitter storms, these hashtags, you know, this trending hashtag, not my Ariel was trending for a while. Ariel is white was trending, but folks went out. I think when this happens, I don't know, we haven't seen the demographics in terms of who went to see the movie, but hopefully it was largely supported by Black folks, and studios get the message is that when you cast us in movies like this, we will come out, whether it's Wakanda forever or whether it is a story about a fictional mermaid, that Black folks, we go to movies, we spend money on movies. I mean, that's been proven by Dr. Hunt's diversity report that he does every year out of UCLA. Those numbers matter. And I think this is a manifestation of those numbers.